weekdays from 3 to 6 on iFiber One News Radio. 747 at iFiber One News Radio. Good morning to you. I'm Jeff Slakey, and I'm happy to have in studio today Mason County Auditor Herr and Fina Ormond, Elections Superintendent for Mason County as well. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming in. I know this is a very busy week on the edge of a huge day with elections coming up in less than 2 weeks now. There's been a lot of news talk recently about rigged elections, and so I thought I would ask you to come in and kind of talk with me a little bit about this. How are we ensured that our votes are being properly counted, that there aren't dead people voting, there aren't perhaps illegal immigrants who don't have citizenship voting, things like. First off, though, when you hear the people talk about the elections are rigged and you got to watch out, how does that make you guys feel?
Well, I can say that it's a bit disturbing to me to just hear general voter fraud allegations being thrown around without any basis in fact.
Right.
It seems to undermine voters' confidence in our system. And I'm concerned that there may be people that choose not to vote here in Mason County because they don't trust our election system. So I'm glad to be here to answer your questions, to be able to tell you the precautions we've taken, what the processes are in our county to guard against voter fraud.
So you said about 38,000, is that right, ballots are sent out across the county?
Yeah, we have 37,500 registered voters, and certainly to speak to people talking about rigged elections, we have incredible integrity in the elections office, and we take our job very, very seriously. So just to kind of hear baseless claims thrown around, or certainly based on one thing that happened maybe in another state and used to say, it's like, oh, did you hear that 2,000 dead people voted? And it's like, where did that happen? And someone's like, oh, I don't know where it happened.
Right.
And it's like, do you know what we do here? Do you know how much we work here? Do you know how hard we work here to update the voter registration system? Do you know how hard we work here to, update the, we pen felons. We compare our list to the Department of Corrections, to make sure felons aren't voting. Mm-hmm. We take lists from the Social Security Index of people who have passed away and compare that to make sure people who are dead, the Social Security Index to make sure deceased people aren't voting. Do you know what we do here? And they don't know. And so it's one story in the entire United States. And who knows if that story is true and that's used to kind of take the name down of people who work really, really hard to make sure the integrity of the elections.
I mean, this is your guys' job. You were elected, Fina, not Fina, but Karen, you were elected to do this job, and it is one of the most basic fundamental rights of being an American is to do this. And I hear what you're saying about perhaps lower turnout, people going, well, I don't know. So let's talk about the process. We have our ballots. We're filling them out. We do our proper signatures at the end. And then it's now all mail in here in the state. So then it's out of our hands after we put it into the ballot drop box or the mailbox. What happens next?
That's a good question. And there's a reason why I pulled Fina away from processing ballots this morning, because not only does she do a remarkable job of overseeing the elections, but she's at the front line to just watch for any irregularities. And I'm just going to have her kind of go over from beginning of an election until certification. There are processes that we have put in place to do just this, just to look for any irregularities.
Okay.
So I'm just going to let her kind of go through those.
And I'm actually going to take us back even before the ballots are sent out so that you can see kind of even before that how early before the election we're working to ensure that the ballots we're sending out are proper and that they've been tested and things like that. So months before the election, we create the ballot. We have to do pre-testing, which is we create the ballot, we print out depending on how many contests there are, we print out ballots. We mark them in certain test pattern to make sure that they work. So if Gary Johnson, if we mark 5 votes for Gary Johnson, we have to do basically a practice election. So we mark 5 votes for Gary Johnson, we mark 6 votes for Randy Netherland. If we do this, we run basically a practice election, and we test it and we run it and we make sure it works. So we run the whole practice election.
Wow.
Then we do it again. We run another one called the official LNA test, where the state comes and they watch it, and that's an official one, and they have to come and certify us to make sure that that was properly done. So those are done. The pre-test is done way before, and then the official LNA test is usually done before the ballot's sent out.
Wow.
So that happens months before the election. So those are to make sure that, yes, the ballots that we are doing are proper, that there's nothing wrong with what's been done, and that so the ballots that you send will be properly tabulated once they come in. Now back into the thing, once we send the ballots out to you, they'll be coming back. We have secure drop boxes, and they're all throughout the county. These are very secure drop boxes. They're locked. They're sealed, so we can see if anyone has been tampered with them. So if somebody happened to have the key, we could tell if they've been opened.
Okay.
They have seal logs on them. They have to be opened by 2 people. They're transported in bags. The bags also have locks on them. They also have seals on them, so we can tell if they've been opened between being brought back and brought back in. So with ballots, we always have to have 2 people, and that's a huge protection to make sure that there's no tampering with the ballots. So, if I'm working on a ballot, I have to have Karen with me, or obviously someone, not necessarily Karen, but so we always have 2 people with us in the ballot room.
So those are folks that are going to get the ballots at the drop boxes. They work in the elections office? It's not like a representative from the 2 major parties, one's from the Democrats and one from the Republicans?
No, that's they used to do it that way, but that's not now. Now we hire extra help.
Yeah.
Some of our extra help, have been with us for about 6 years, things like that. So. Yeah, so no, they're not necessarily representative of each party.
Okay.
Yeah, so we remain apolitical in the ballot processing room. So when they come back in, again, we always have 2 people with the ballots. They're batched together, and then the next process for them is signature checking, and that's something a lot of people don't realize, is that we signature check every single ballot that comes in. So for this election, we're estimating 30,000 ballots we're going to get back in, so we're going to check 30,000 signatures.
Where are the signatures? They're on a computer file or something like that?
And they're pulled from the voter registration file. So when you registered to vote, you signed an oath saying, this is my voter registration oath, and they're scanned into our computer when we registered you, or if you registered with Motor Voter as part of Department of Licensing.
I remember a couple years ago, I got a letter after the election saying, well, could you come in, please, and re-sign this? We're not quite sure if your signature doesn't match what we have on file.
Exactly.
And there's a good reason for that.
So let's talk about that.
Okay. So when they are doing their signature verification, they have the ballot and they have a computer screen. There's the signature, and they check it. If there's any doubt, and they've all been trained by the State Patrol
Washington
office,
State Patrol, all the signature checkers.
Had a lot of training. If they feel that is not a match, then they will send out the letter and say, they want to make sure that it's you that signed that ballot. And that's something that you should be glad that we do.
Yeah.
If your ballot was, just say, your neighbor got it instead of you, and they decided to sign it and send it back in, and you signed your name, and it's not your signature, and we accepted it, and then you call and said, I never got my ballot. It'd be like, yes, you did. We already counted it.
Sure.
You just lost your vote. So if we suspect that maybe it wasn't you, We just want to verify, give you another chance to verify that, yes, it was actually you.
Because I know my signature changes over the years, and
exactly.
you want to make a
Yes,
nice
yes.
signature. I remember when I got, you sign your social, whatever, you sign your vote, you make it a nice signature, and then all your other signatures are totally different.
yeah.
And then you have I had to remember.
Thanks for bringing that up, because we get that a lot. We get the first letter and then just a line.
Yeah.
And it's like, you'll get a letter, because we can't verify that. It's very difficult to. So if it does change over time, because sometimes it does as you go through life. And when you come in and verify it, we will scan that new signature, or just come on in. Like yesterday, someone came in and said, I have I know my signature has changed. I get a letter frequently. They just gave us a new signature, so that's something that they can do.
And what you do is you sign that letter, and then we scan it in, and then you have a signature history, and we can look at that too. Because some people, sign, they have their nice signature, and then they have their sloppy signature, and so we can look at both.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How many would you say you pull out that the signatures don't look the same?
It really depends on the election, honestly, and I have to say it's kind of odd, but we usually seem to have some sort of theme on every election. So it'll be like the sloppy signature election, or the husband and wife signing ballot signature election. This really seems to be the unsigned letter signature. So I really encourage everybody to not forget to sign their ballot.
So what happens in those cases?
The same thing, we send them a letter and say, you forgot to sign your ballot, and there's a letter on it, and you don't have to come into the office. There's a letter on the back, and they get another chance. They can just sign the letter.
Okay.
It has another ballot oath with their name on it, and they can send it in, and we'll use that. So they're during that time, their ballot is sitting in challenged. And once we get the letter back, we call it, the ballot is being cured, and then we will send it on for processing. But until we get the letter back, we're not counting their ballot.
We're talking with Herr and Fina Ormond about elections here. We're going to kind of zip through the ABC News at the top of the hour, because this is an important conversation here at KMAS Shelton. So that out of the way, now we have a little more time, if you do, to talk about this. I know you're very busy. So now we're in the middle of the counting process. I'd imagine you're starting to get some ballots back in. And so how does it work now from here, for you guys in the office?
So we've been signature checking. We've already hit 20% turnout, which what did it say? We're in the top 3 of the counties that
nice.
for turnout
In
Washington State.
That's a fast return.
Yeah.
We've only been processing for 3 days. 20% of the return ballots.
So
That's a lot.
interest is high in this election.
Very. And I think that's why they had forgotten to sign it. They've been waiting for this election a long time. And they just wanted to get it in. It seemed like it's been going on a long time.
So as we move up to Election Day, November 8th, at 8 o'clock, the stuff's shut down here in the great state of Washington. And within just 10, 15, 20 minutes or so, we already see some numbers. So where do those numbers come from? These ballots that you've already collected?
Yes,
Okay.
the 20%. Yeah, so we're picking up the ballot boxes every day, and we really encourage people to use the ballot boxes. I mean, the post office is also, that's great too. We've been we're getting lots of ballots back in the post office. Again, they only need 1 stamp. But also the ballot boxes, we have them all over the county. We're picking them up every day. So those are also very secure. And then we process them every day. So after signature verification, we open them on the table. Ballot processing is a very open.
It's very transparent.
So we have observers. We also have observers from the political parties who come and watch us every day, and we're very we feel, I feel grateful. Some people find, when I tell people that like observers come to watch us, and then they think, oh my gosh, like I can't imagine having some people, like 3 people sitting there just like watching you all day like that. But, I feel very grateful for us, because the observers come to watch us, and sometimes a lot of them come and they want to see like what's going on and how's her things working, and I want to make sure there's no fraud here, and really I've not really had anyone leave and say something bad's going here. Mostly they leave and they go, I just can't believe how hard you guys are working, and you guys just are doing a fantastic job. And so the observers are really our best cheerleaders, I guess, you know, and so that's really good for us. So these are the from the political parties who watch us, and so.
And as far as observers, we conduct observer training prior to the election. So anybody that wants to observe the election comes in, and we go over the entire process so they know what they're watching, because they really can't get involved. They just, they're just there to observe. They can ask questions for Fina, but if you're watching it and you don't understand it, it's pointless. So
it can seem confusing, when you're watching. Yeah.
And so we have been starting at 7 in the morning, and we go through the day, and we have had observers there from 7 o'clock until we close every day, and we and I'm sure they will be there through the entire process.
Wow.
And we welcome it. If there is somebody that actually wants to watch the process or they have questions, by all means, it's an open process. We don't have a lot of room, but we will definitely give them that opportunity.
How do you make sure, let's go back to some of these things that people are talking about, dead people voting and perhaps non-citizens voting. How do you make sure that the proper names are on the rolls or off the rolls?
So, again, the dead people voting, there's a couple things we do to the voter registration list. So again, the state, we have our voter registration list is connected to the state voter registration list. So there's one big list there, and then we are connected to that list. So, for example, this is a little aside, if somebody registers in Thurston County, the state will connect that they are a registered voter in our county, and they will cancel them in our county.
Oh, so if there was two people maybe potential for voting in two counties?
Right. So that will, so that's just a way that we're all connected, just to make the connection of how that works.
Okay.
So, for example, like if someone, because you have to re-register in a new county. So I say, I'm registered in Thurston County, and then they say like, oh, look, there's a duplicate. This one person has the same name and the same birth date, and then they'll cancel them in our county. And so they won't no longer be a registered voter. So the state has, the state gets lists. So one of the things they get is a list, as I mentioned previously, from the Social Security Index, and they'll append them in our system, and then we'll have to look at the record, and they'll say like, and then we will cancel them if the record matches.
Okay.
So that's one of the things. So we get lists of deceased voters or deceased persons from the Social Security Index. We get them from the Department of Health, the Washington State Department of Health. We also we get the obituaries from the Journal, and then we cancel deceased voters that way.
Okay.
So those are the kind of three ways that we pend and cancel deceased voters.
And then I guess how would a non-citizen even get a ballot? I mean, is this a thing where non-citizens are voting in this election?
Well, there is a process for that. When they come in to register to vote, there is a declaration that they sign that they are U.S. citizens. If someone challenges that, there is a penalty, 5 years in prison and $10,000 fine. So there is a process for that. Although we're very confident in the security of the elections, if somebody does suspect any kind of voter fraud, there is an entire chapter in the RCW, state law, that addresses any kind of voter violation and the punishment if they are found guilty. There is also a voter registration challenge process. If anybody suspects that somebody doesn't live in the district where they claim, if someone's not a citizen, if there's any kind of irregularities in voter registration, it's a very public process, and the burden of proof is on the accuser. If they submit that documentation to us, we will do our due diligence to make a determination. It's a canvassing board meets, which is the prosecuting attorney, the chair of the commission, and myself will meet and look at all the documentation and make that determination. So if there is any question out there, there is due process.
And so you said the penalty was up to 5 years in prison, $10,000 fine if you willingly cast a ballot in an election that you're not supposed to cast a ballot in, something like that?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have any other than, well, my husband signed for me, my wife signed for me, I just forgot something, or I was in another county. Do you have any numbers for Washington State on voter fraud or election fraud, or however it's described here in the state? I mean, do you guys talk about this at meetings? You go, well, there was this one case, I don't know, 25 years ago, something like that?
In Washington State, I don't have that data. I can tell you that I have worked every election for the last 25 years in Mason County, and there has never been a specific case of voter fraud in our county. And I intend to keep it that way.
Yeah.
Fina and I have worked for many years together to, just like I said, to put the processes in place to prevent any kind of fraud. But I think Washington State is in a good place. You hear, like Fina said, in the media, a lot of things, a lot of, allegations on voter fraud. And, Washington State, we're getting daily updates from the Secretary of State's office. They have partnered with the Department of Homeland Security in securing, the statewide, their statewide data. We are an all-mail, so we have in Washington State, we have a verifiable paper audit trail for everybody that votes. That's very unusual for some states. So I think Washington has a lot of things in place that probably protects us against voter fraud more than maybe some other states.
Oh, good. That is encouraging. Well, thank you so much. I'll let you get back to that grind there. I know it's coming up quick, about 12 or 13 days or so left till that general election, November 8th. Get those ballots in by 8 p.m. They got to be postmarked on the day or into those drop boxes because they are locked.
They're locked
right at 8.
Yes. Don't wait till the last day.
And you can find the list of the 5 drop-off slots in Mason County on the Auditor's website. Fina, Karen, thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you for having
talking to
us.
me about this very important issue. It's 8:10 now at iFiber One News Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk sports a little bit with Sean Wells on iFiber One News Radio.
Hi, I'm Ken Slater.